Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is our first time homebuyer class called How to Buy a Home, sponsored by MGIC, which is one of our affiliates in the mortgage industry. And today we're going to cover getting ready to buy a home, actually going through the process of getting a mortgage and buying your home, closing on your mortgage, and then what it takes to be a successful homeowner. So, getting ready to buy a home. It all starts with credit. Whether you have good credit, bad credit, or no credit, it's where we are. So that's where we're going to start. Some questions that people ask are, how do you go about getting better credit if you've already got bad credit, or how do you establish credit? I would say the number one thing is to go ahead and get your credit accounts in order. If you have made late payments, there's nothing you can do about them. They're going to be reporting. So going forward, you want to make sure that you make all of your payments on time. Payments are probably the number one factor affecting your credit, and then right behind that is the overall utilization of your credit. So whatever your available balances are, you want to try to keep your usage on those balances at about 20% to 25%. If you have bad credit, you want to try to keep it lower than that at 10 or 15%. If you have really great credit, you could bump that up to about 30%. So I always use round numbers. If you owe about or have a limit of about $1,000, you're going to want to keep your utilization down probably around $200. Savings and budgeting. So buying a house takes cash. Even if you're going to use some sort of assistance program, or you have a family member that's going to give you some cash, you're still going to need at least a little bit of your own. The easiest way to come up with cash is to create a budget, track all of your expenses and all of your income, and make sure that you stick to it. If you say per month I'm going to spend, I don't know, $100 a month on eating out, don't go spend $300 a month on eating out. Stick to your budget. Try to spend as little as possible. Make sure when you do create your budget that you put everything on there. It doesn't matter if it's new work boots, if you need gloves for the winter, if you need makeup, if you need to look a certain way for your job, you need dress shirts. Make sure everything is on there. If you take prescription drugs, put your drug costs on there, so on and so forth. Don't leave anything out, because otherwise it's really easy to cheat on your budget. The more accurate you are with your budget, the better you'll do to sticking to it. When you have some cash in the bank and your credit seems like it's at least workable, you might want to start the pre-qualification process. Pre-qualifying for a mortgage is really the first step. It's going to let you know mostly what you can afford. What kind of a house are you looking for? So that if you start to work with a real estate agent, or you want to start your search online, you're not looking at things that are way outside of your affordability range. So pre-qualifying for a mortgage starts with a mortgage lender like myself. You're going to want to provide a handful of documents usually. You're going to need to know a 2-year living history, like all your addresses for 2 years, an employment history for the last 2 years. If you have gaps in there, we're going to need to account for those. We'll usually collect 2 years of tax returns and 2 years of W-2s, and then 2 months of pay stubs and 2 months of bank statements. Those are kind of the basics, and a photo ID. But from those documents, we can start to paint the picture of what resources do you actually have available to you, and what is your income, so that we can start to determine per your debts and your income, what are your ratios looking like, because all of the mortgage products are going to have to fit into some level of ratio of debt to income. So now you're pre-qualified and you're ready to go ahead and buy your home. So what are you looking for? Like, we kind of have a price range, but within that, what is important to you? So I like to have my folks make a list of things that are just must-haves. If you have, I don't know, an entire room full of tools, there's a pretty darn good chance you need a garage or a shed or some sort of workshop to store them all in. If you have a home-based business, you might need a second bedroom, or if you are a family with children, you might need a master bedroom and smaller bedrooms down the hall. So make a list of all the things that you absolutely need to have, and then the things that you want to have. So what school district do you want to live in? What age home would you prefer? Are you comfortable doing maintenance and upkeep? If you hate mowing lawns, don't get a house with a great big giant lawn. Maybe a townhome is better, or a place with a small yard. How much size and space do you need? How much are the taxes in a given neighborhood? That's always an important one, as well as if it has an HOA fee and then HOA rules. So who helps you actually buy a home? Well, there's a few different people in the process. Your real estate agent, your lender, there's a title company involved, an insurance agent, there's a variety of people. But early on in the process, predominantly it's going to be you working with someone like myself to get pre-qualified, know what you're looking for, and then take the next step to pre-approval. And then we're going to get you in the hands of a real estate agent that can help you set up a search online. They'll email you different houses that they think fit your parameters, so on and so forth. And then when you're ready to actually go out and look at houses, they will be the ones that will get you in through the lock marks. So you'll need a good real estate agent. So once you find the house that you're looking for, you're going to want to make an offer. I think that that's at the point where you're going to want to have your fully pre-approved loan package kind of in place, so we know what kind of loan works for you, because your real estate agents are going to put a lot of that information inside of your offer when they write the contract. They're going to say, hey, this borrower's going to use this type of financing, they're going to have this much down payment. Maybe we want money back from the seller of the house. With it, maybe we're going to ask for some concessions to help pay closing costs. They're going to need to know all of that stuff up front. That's another reason why you kind of start the process with a loan person like myself. So I just mentioned a home inspection. That is the one thing that you will do outside of your lender. I really don't have anything to do with home inspections. Your real estate agent would tell you. At this point, you're assuming, or we're assuming, that you've made an offer and it was accepted, so now you're under contract and you're going to hire an inspector. They're going to go look at the house from top to bottom and make sure that everything works. If it doesn't work, if the plumbing isn't good, electrical, furnace, roof, whatever, windows, if they're not up to snuff, that inspection item can become a really powerful negotiating tool, because you can go back to the seller and say, hey, my inspector said that there's only 1 year of life left on this furnace, and the furnace costs, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. I'm going to need you to replace that for me. So I always recommend that you get a home inspection. Don't skip it. It's worth the money that you spend. Just know that that is money that you're going to spend out of your pocket. It doesn't come through the loan process. Okay, so that's one of the upfront costs that you need to be prepared to pay for. Also, there's a thing called earnest money. When you put your offer in, you're going to write a check, usually the same day or the next day that they accept your offer, for some amount, $500, $1,000. It's a deposit on the contract, meaning that you're working in earnest to buy that house. So those are a couple of expenses that you can plan on spending on the front end. And then later in the process, when you get to the actual closing, you're going to have whatever your down payment was, plus your closing costs. And then escrow is basically a savings account that you're going to pre-fund. So part of your closing costs are costs, and part of them are what are called prepaids or escrows. That's going to be your taxes and your insurance. So you always have to pay for the whole first year of insurance up front, 1 year on insurance, and then usually a couple of months extra that are going to go into an escrow account. And then you're going to pay the first tax period, which is usually a half a year, plus maybe a couple of months buffer. That's going to get collected up front, held in an escrow account, and then when the bill comes due, so like your insurance is already paid for a year later, a bill's going to come, you're not going to pay that directly. That's going to get paid from the escrow account. Okay, so the lender will write a check for your year 2 homeowner's insurance, or your next tax bill that comes due. That'll get paid from the escrow account. First, let's define what is in the mortgage payment. So there's the principal and interest. Those are kind of the obvious ones. Any loan you have will always have a principal portion and an interest portion, unless it's an interest-free loan. On a mortgage, generally speaking, at the beginning of the process, you're paying more in interest and less in principal. As you make your payments over time, that starts to flip-flop, and more of your total payment is going to go to the principal portion. That's the actual loan amount. So if you loan $200,000, it's $200,000 in principal, and then whatever the interest is on top of that. The other couple of things that are added into your payment, we just talked a little bit, taxes and insurance. You're always paying a little bit ahead on your taxes and insurance to put money into that escrow account so that the money's there when the bill comes due. But that is part of your overall monthly mortgage payment. Almost every type of mortgage that you get, if you don't put a large enough down payment, which is generally 20%, you're gonna pay mortgage insurance. This class is kind of steered towards conventional mortgages, which would use private mortgage insurance. But if you use a government loan like an FHA loan, they also have their own FHA mortgage insurance. USDA loans, the same thing. Or lastly would be a VA loan. You actually don't pay, if you're a veteran, you don't pay mortgage insurance. The down payment is going to be determined by the loan product. As I mentioned, there's FHA loans, which are government loans. They're listed down at the bottom. They require a 3.5% down payment. The Veterans Administration loans do not require any down payment. So much like the pre-qualification stage, when you're actually doing your mortgage application, you're going to need your 2 years of tax returns, 2 years of W-2s, 2 years of employment history, 2 years of living history or address history. You're going to need your paycheck stubs for 2 months, and you're going to need 2 months of bank statements. If you have other types of bank accounts or like retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, things like that, those are usually quarterly statements that they cover 3-month spans, so we would only need one of those, whatever the most current one is. And basically the loan estimate is showing you exactly what the terms of the loan as we know them at that time. So if we think that the rate is going to be 6% or 5% or whatever it's going to be, and we think that this is the loan amount and this is the down payment and these are the fees that are going to be charged, all that's going to go on a loan estimate and get sent to you so you can review it. Once the loan estimate goes out, there's tolerance levels for changes. A lot of the things on there are not allowed to change at all. There's zero tolerance for any changes. One of those would be my fee. If I say I'm going to charge you $1,500, then I can't charge you $1,520 later. Some of the things that have some room for movement would be the appraisal fee. If I said it was going to be $700 and the appraiser comes back and charges $800, we would send you a notification of change, and then that fee would go up $100. So once we have all of the stuff, the loan estimate's been sent to you, we have all your documentation, then the package kind of gets handed off. It goes to a processor, and the processor's job is really to take all of the information we've provided. If there's going to be additional information we need, that processor will identify that and collect it. And then their job is to tidy up the file so that when we give it to the underwriter, hopefully all of the underwriter's questions are already answered. So once we get through the underwriter, we're going to get ready to close on the home loan, and that's a pretty simple process. Much like the loan estimate you got at the beginning, you're going to get what's called a closing disclosure, or a CD. That has to go out a certain amount of time before you can close on your loan, and it's going to look very similar to the loan estimate. And the reason for that is some of the older documentation before 2012, the good faith estimate was what is now called a loan estimate, and the closing disclosure looked nothing alike. And it was really hard to compare the two documents to make sure that the fees didn't change. Now, the closing disclosure looks almost identical to the loan estimate, so it's really easy to say, oh, Stan told me $1,500 on the loan estimate, and here it says $1,500. I can see that it did change. You're going to need a certified check or a wire transfer for whatever your down payment and closing cost number is. That's going to be identified on that closing disclosure. That's why you get it a few days ahead. At the title company, there's a person called the closing officer. They're going to go ahead and review all of your paperwork with you through the packet and then have you sign it. There's a handful of things that are pretty important. Your mortgage note, so that's your actual loan details. Again, it spells out how much you borrowed, at what interest rate, how many payments it's going to take. There's an amortization schedule in there that shows each month how much your payment went to principal, how much went to interest, so that you can always track your progress towards actually paying down the thing. Then there's a deed. The deed is actually the ownership tool. So you have a loan and then you have ownership. So even though the bank still has a loan, you own the house. And so a deed is what gets filed that says you own the house. And then you're going to get your keys. So congratulations, at this point you're a homeowner.